Hello, everyone. So today we are going to talk about Amazon DocumentDB, which is like a highly fast, reliable, and fully managed database services. And it really helps us make it easy to set up, operate, and scale MongoDB compatibility. First, it's storing a lot of databases in the form of clusters, and we can make a lot of data copies within it. It's highly scalable and requires very low cost. I think it would be really helpful in things like real-time recommendation systems where we have huge telemetry data or input data that is coming up. So, the way we would want the architecture to look like, sometimes is to interact with the document DB cluster. I think one of the easiest ways by just setting up an EC2 instance for it. So this is what we are going to do today. We'll set up an EC2 instance, which will help us talk to the document DB cluster and save data accordingly. So let's start with, there would be some of the steps that we would want to follow in making this architecture. So this is how it looks like. We would first want to create security groups and then EC2 instances, then document DB cluster, and then install a Mongo shell that will help us talk to the document DB cluster via an EC2 instance. So typically, we would want to start with creating two important security group, one that lets us talk to the EC2 instance and one that lets the EC2 instance talk to the document DB cluster. So here, since I've already created a demo EC2, it shows me all the information, but this is how we can start with creating the first security group. We would want to, let's just name it as the demo EC2 for now. And basically what it helps us to do is enables SSH into the EC2 instances. Now in the inbound rules, we would want to have the type as SSH, which default gives out the port range to be 22. And since it's completely dependent on you if you want the custom to be only specifically your IP, so that only your IP can talk to the document DB cluster, or it could be any IP basically. And yeah, just go ahead and create a security group. Since I've already created one, I do have it on my portal right now. But yeah, you guys can go ahead and create one. The next EC2 instance we would want to create is demo DCB, which will help us to talk to the DCB cluster, document DB cluster through the EC2 instance. So yeah, we can write the description as enables EC2 into document DB. And most importantly, in the inbound rules, we would want to keep the custom TCP with the port range as 27017. This is where we can talk to the document DB cluster. And the source, yeah, we would want the source to be demo EC2, which we had earlier created so that the EC2 instance can access the document DB cluster. So yeah, you can just go ahead and create the second security group, which would be important for us for the whole setup. The next step we would want to do here is create a demo EC2 instance. So let's call it just as demo DB trial here. And most importantly, the OS image, the operating system image that we would want to keep for the EC2 instance here is Amazon Linux 2. And I would suggest you to go for an instance type, which is the free tier, just to experiment around it. And yeah, you can create a key pair that will help us access through the SSH, or if you already have one, you can just select any one of them. I do have one, so I'll just select one of them. And make sure that you store the key pair somewhere safe, because you would require it whenever you access the EC2. Yeah, the next important part is you have to select the existing security group as the demo EC2 that we had earlier created. And yeah, I think you don't have to change anything in the advanced details, and you can just create the EC2 instance. The next step you would want to do is create a document DB cluster. The only thing that I would want you to change in the default setting is to maybe keep to a free tier system, and also keep one of the instances to access it. The most important part here is to keep the username and password correctly and make sure that you have it saved somewhere. And in the advanced settings, you would want to keep the security group here is the demo DCB security group that we had earlier created, so that we can access it through the EC2 instance. And yeah, I think that's about it. You can just go ahead and create the cluster here. It might take a few minutes to create the cluster, but this is how it would look like. It will show us a lot of commands which will help us to talk to the shell. Also, insert it in an application and stuff like that. Now we can move ahead with how we can talk to the DocumentDB cluster and store data whenever we want. So I have created a small script which will help me to talk to, the DocumentDB cluster and, for example, save the real-time movie recommendation data that I have. So this is how a small seed data look like. I do have another script like a JSON script, which will help me create this dictionary of all these movie data, which is more. And yeah, herein, all you have to do is remember the username and password that we had earlier saved, and the cluster endpoint is just this particular endpoint that is stored here. So yeah, make sure you have it accessed. And apart from that, yeah, this will basically help us to store the seed data that we had. Right now I'm just storing 50 data points within it. And it will also help us query the ID 199 and see, for the user ID 199, what are the kind of data points that we have here. So this is one of the scripts that we can use to talk to the DocumentDB cluster. Now let's put this script onto the EC2 instance and see how it works. So if you go to the EC2 instance that we had earlier created and select on the connect to the instance part, it will basically create us a browser where we can talk to the particular EC2 instance, and this is how it looks like. The next step we would most importantly want to do is make the Mongo shell available for the EC2 instance. So all you have to do is, typically just copy these command lines, create the command shell into, store a repo that saves the Mongo shell, and also install it, and also save the CS certificate key that helps us talk to the DocumentDB cluster. Since I've already done this on this particular EC2 instance, you guys can go ahead and just enter those commands before. And now you can see is that I have already got the query.py script over here that we had earlier discussed. And this is what I want to, it to show. So I'll just run it right now. And what we would expect it to do is to just show out, all the queries that are entered for the user ID 199. So yeah, this is how it looks like. I was also printing out if it has the database saved. But apart from that, when it asks to print the query results. So yeah, as you can see, the user ID 199 that we had given is particularly printed out. All the data points that the user ID has watched and the movie has watched is out here. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting tool to sort of query data that we specifically want and store it in the way, we find it useful in order to especially maybe create validation data sets. I hope you found this useful, and yeah, thank you.